Are Uber Eats shop and deliver orders high risk or a great way to earn some money? The answer is yes to both. And I teach you a right way to do it where you're profitable. And we're going to get to that. I got absolutely burned on an Aldi order here recently. I want to share what went wrong. And then also, unexpectedly at the end, something went right, which is very rare. And I'm going to share some details about that. Even though I'm going to correctly identify a customer as a liar, we need to take the opposite emotion here. When we're dealing with customers, it should be with joy and not anger or suspicion, because the customers are paying us for the work we do, and we want to be helpful and do everything possible to help them and not to have any negative feelings. So let's look at this order and tell me, as you see this within a few seconds, is this a great order, a good order, or an okay order? And I teach you how to pick profitable orders, especially doing shop and deliver. It's so important, and I'm going to share why as I go through the screenshots walking through this and then the chat with the customer. So looking at it, 8:05. 30 minutes, all right, that's $16 an hour, and 4.6 miles. That's more than $1 per mile. So I would rate this as an okay offer. It's definitely not a bad one, and it was slow during this time, and that's my typical excuse for trying not to follow what I teach you to do, and I need to always do it as well, but it was slow. I knew that I'd be in and out of that store 2 items, 4 units, that's quick. 10 minutes in the store, and we'll just say 10 minutes to get to the drop-off location, not 30 minutes. I know this because I've been doing food delivery part-time for more than 7 years now. So I knew what I'm doing, and there's no way this is going to take forever. So it was an okay order for me, and I would say it's an okay order for you. This order was an absolute disaster. It took me a total of 51 minutes, and for some strange reason, it was 6 miles to the drop-off. I don't understand that. Before I get into the bad news of this order, I want to teach you right now how to pick profitable orders. And just using this as an example, you want to look at the items. You want to have low item count. The units don't matter, but items do. So this is just 2 items, really quick. And then when you see that offer, how many miles is it and what's the time estimate? So you just want to take that offer and divide that by the miles and do well over $1 per mile, $2 or more if you can handle that. And then you can do simple math. You take the offer, it gives you an estimate. So this was 8:05, 31 minutes, that's $16 an hour. That's an easy way to see, is that worth your time? And then also the wear and tear on your car. And the reason you want to do low item count, you want to be in and out of that store. That way you can pick up another delivery. And then also while you're in the store, you can enjoy the nice air conditioning or the heat, depending on the time of year, and have easy access to the restroom. And food delivery drivers and rideshare drivers, you know the struggle is real about using the restroom. So enjoy that freebie for these kind of orders. Another reason you want to absolutely only do low item count orders, the app, the Uber Eats app, I won't want to say it's terrible, but it's not good. It's not refined like Instacart. So it has trouble scanning barcodes sometimes, even though it's right there. And that's frustrating. And then the bigger issue is if they're out of stock and you're trying to find a replacement, you should get the customer's permission. And that means you need to contact the customer. And I will say on Uber Eats, historically, the customer's not paying attention, especially on shopping orders. They're doing other things, unlike Instacart. So the difference here is you have to contact them and get their permission to swap something out. Or you also want to make sure that they approve of it in advance, because otherwise they're going to take away your tip. They're going to give you bad ratings. And I don't want to risk deactivation on Uber Eats over something like this. So when you take low item count orders, that enables you to get in and out of the store. The likelihood is much more if that cart is full of items. Think of all the hassle of contacting a customer over and over and over again as they're out of items. And that's what happened to me on this order. Only 2 items and 1 was out of stock. That's what destroyed this order. When you're waiting on the customer and having to interact with them, that's when everything goes downhill, and then you quickly start losing money on orders like this. So take low item count orders. And please share in the comments right now if you are willing to put this to the test and try some shop and deliver orders at different stores, low item count and low miles. Please let me know if you're up for this challenge. And let me know as well, if you disagree with this concept, let me know that too. And put why. The why will help all drivers understand your reservations. So between those two pieces of feedback, I think this is going to be a great way for drivers to see if this is a worthy idea and try it on their own and see what happens. And if it doesn't work out for you, you've just tested it, and that's okay. There's many ways of making money on Uber Eats, and I like helping you, so just give it a try and see what happens. So moving right along, Aldi is new on Uber Eats. Bring a quarter with you. You're going to need this to get your shopping cart as the security deposit. It's the little key that allows you to take the cart out and go in and shop. That's essential. And then also this store, they stock limited items. It's high turnover. And so you'll even bag up your own groceries when you pick up the bags. So just to be warned about that. The layout of the store is fine though. You'll be able to find things. All right, let's get back to this disaster with the customer who happened to lie. We're going to call him Tony. So when I got in there, I saw these items. I actually thought the spice here, this prepared seafood boil, I thought that was spice mix. So I was going up and down the aisles, and then I thought, all right, I'm going to go over and do the next item, this snow crab. And I knew that's obviously in the freezer. As I got near the freezer, I saw the crab was out, but right next to it, I was looking, wow, the picture looked the same. So both of these items were in the freezer. I was able to get the two items that he wanted of the boil pack. And then I knew, because they're out of stock of snow crab, I was looking around to see if there are other forms of crab in there, and there weren't. I also want to mention that when I noticed that crab was out of stock and I was trying to contact him, before I did this, I also asked a worker that was there, and I asked her if they have any more crab. She told me they only got in one case yesterday and it was sold right away, and they did not get any crab in that day. So I wanted to have this information ready to share with Tony. That way he knows that I'm already ahead. I'm already trying to find a replacement, and then I'm confirming, going the extra mile to make sure that they did or didn't have it in the store. So this is a important tip for you. You know what the customer's going to ask, so be ahead of that and have that answer ready for them. That way it shows that you're doing everything possible to fill their order. So getting back to the crab, when I contacted him, it was by chat. I wanted to talk to him by phone. It would have been so much easier. And let me encourage you, try to talk to the customer when there's a complex situation like this. So the app recommended as a replacement would be some shrimp, which that could be, right? They're going to do a seafood boil. And then I messaged him. I asked him if he wanted to substitute the shrimp. And then I also took a picture so that he could see. And he came back and he saw those mussels. And so he wanted boxes of those. And then he also wanted me to add more of the seafood boil. And this is all by text. So there were two flavors. Actually, there were three, but I only saw the two at first. And then he picked the ones he wanted, and I got the multiple boxes of those. And then in one of them, I had to go in and add it as a new item, because think about it this way. There's two flavors of mussels. The crab is one item, and it has a replacement. Then I added in as a new item the mussels, so that worked out. And then actually, I forgot. I asked him to add the mussels from his end. So between the two of us, it worked out. Then there was a problem when I went in to get the more bags of the seafood boil. Because I had already claimed those two bags, which is what he ordered, he could not go in from his end, he told me, and add more items to it. He couldn't do it. And I didn't want to risk losing that part of the order, because, you know, that would be frustrating to have an issue with the crab and now not even be able to do the seafood boil, even though I had already done it. And he couldn't go back from his end and add more. So I did a little technique, and I actually don't recommend you do this, but I've done it before quite a few times years ago. I do it sparingly. So, and again, I'm sure UberEats is not listening to this. So you're taking the risk on your own, because I wanted this guy to be happy. Good old Tony. I wanted him to be happy and have everything he needed for this feast. I said, hey, if you have cash, I can just pay for it on my own, and you could give me cash at the door for the extra items that wouldn't go in the app. Or you could just increase the tip. And he said, oh, I don't have cash. And then he said, I already submitted the tip, or I already inputted the tip. So basically that was his way of saying no. So I just said, okay. So instead of getting the 3 bags, he just got the 2. So I was bending over backwards trying to help. And yes, I'm taking the risk on my end because maybe he won't reimburse me. But you're going to have to use your own best judgment of the customers in your area and just see if that's something you want to do. Again, that's high risk, and I've done it before, and so I offered. Anyway, the key point to remember is that he said he already submitted the tip, and I remembered that. And you're going to see why here in a second. All right, so up next, I finished everything. I had all the replacements that he wanted and those bags of the boil, and then I headed to checkout. And he already had approved of everything. You can see there the check mark for the 4 units. No more pending. And then the traditional, are you using the Plus card? Yes. I'm not going to go into all the details of why, but always use the Plus card. You're taking a risk if you use your own money. Then it asked how many bags I used. And good old California, you know, we got rid of the plastic bags, but now these paper bags are so thin and they tear. So basically they have to double bag everything. So that was 2 bags for the order. And then it said, oh, yay, you're all set with shopping, with a nice cartoon graphic with some stars. That makes me feel so special and so valued. And then right before I was checking out, I did see a message from Tony pop up, and he said something that he had to go pick up his wife and just to leave the order at the door. And keep in mind, this is frozen seafood. So I said, of course. And then I headed out, paid, bagged everything up, and then started on the delivery. So right after I dropped off the order and closed it out, I drove away because you don't want to be near their house. And then I parked and I looked, and you can do this too. Go into your earnings. Right when you finish that order, you can see some details. And this is how I know that Tony lied to me. Shame on him. So obviously I already knew this order went long, that disaster of trying to replace all those items. So obviously that was 51 minutes. And then I was surprised to see the miles, 6 miles, 4.6 to 6. That's quite a difference. And then here's the important part. Remember the original offer was $8.05? Well, then how could $8.05 be right here under the fare? That right there tells you the customer did not tip. This was a no-tip order. If there was a tip, let's say he tipped $1, the offer was $8.05, the fare would have said $7.05, and then it would say that the tip is pending because Uber Eats waits an hour, and then you see your tip come in. So Tony lied for whatever reason. And then I'm glad that he felt guilty of all the work I had done. You know, to spend basically $8 for almost an hour, that's crazy. Maybe he felt good, or who knows. Anyway, the point is, he did not tip me. I was so surprised. As the day went on, I had done some more orders, and then I noticed my pay went up dramatically. So I opened up, and sure enough, Tony tipped me. Thank you. I'm so glad that he tipped me for all my hard work, for that hour of hard work. He ended up tipping me $7.07, which, wow, that is great. That made it work out. If I made $15.02 for 51 minutes, that's obviously about $16 per hour. But then the dollars per mile, that works out to $2.50 per mile. That is great. So that immediately turned this disaster of an order into a good order. It definitely wasn't a great order because to make only $15, $16 an hour, that's not great. But this definitely rescued that horrible experience wasting my time and gas for $8 for an hour. That was bad. So I'm glad that Tony felt a little bit better and tipped me. And let's dig a little bit deeper. This is not in your app, but I want to show you some information, and I think you're going to be interested in this. And it gets into, why do customers tip? So you can't find this in your app, but I'll share more on this in a second. Tony paid $18.69, not counting the groceries from the store. And then he got a discount from Uber of $4.90. And then obviously he tipped me $7.07. So my earnings were $15.12. And then Uber, they charged him a service fee of $5.74 to use the app. So when you do the math, that's $18.69, and then you minus the $4.90, minus the $5.74. Wow, that comes out to $8.05. That explains why you see that offer at $8.05, because behind the scenes, the customer is charged some fees. So what I would hope that he realized the work that I had done for an hour. I hope that's why he tipped me. But maybe he also tipped me afterwards in light of that $4.90 discount. So then he's only adding really a couple extra dollars. But total to the customer, not counting the cost of the food, would be $18.69 plus that $7 tip. So we'll just say roughly he paid UberEats $25 for me to go to that store and get those few items and then drop it off at his place. So I think you can appreciate the customers are paying quite a bit for the services that they're desiring. And then from your perspective as the driver, you want to have a great customer service attitude because they're paying a lot and they're paying for the groceries. We want to do everything possible to let them have that great experience and feel like they got their money's worth. So customers like Tony, they're not going to actually care about our finances. When they pay that much for an order and then have to pay for the food as well, they just want to have a great experience. They're going to assume that we're being paid well enough. In reality, as drivers, we know that tips really make a big difference to make it worth our time. The base pay, it's just not going to cut it. We'll go out of business doing that. So if you're curious, how did I find all that information? It is not in the UberEats app. So I've got good news for you. I made a video where I looked at a pattern to see customers who tip and customers who don't, based on all those high fees they pay. You are going to come away with an appreciation of what the customer pays, and therefore, should we even expect a tip? And this is where your customer service really comes in. So in there, I'm going to share how you can find it and then how you can be more profitable as well. So watch that video next, and I'll see you there.